good evening, everyone. Thank you, Shanky, Caroline, for inviting me today to exchange some experience about the ethics and. Is it not working? Oh no, not here.
Oh, correct.
But yeah, about ethics and religion shaping stem cell science in Mexico. Well, I wrote a long paper. It's really long, so it hasn't been published yet. I hope to publish it in a philosophical journal in Mexico, because I really would like to disseminate what has been discussed in the political arena in Mexico and how the Catholic Church has been lobbying for a long time now. The prohibition on the one side of all stem cell research, and on the other, it's working together with the industry in order to get unproven treatments for the population. So it's a work that I have been doing for more than 4 years now. So I got a lot of evidence that shows how the Catholic Church has been lobbying intensively over the political arena and pharmaceutical industry. So I'm not gonna read the whole paper because I don't think that I'm not going to have time to do that. So I'm going to highlight the main features and points that I have been looking at during these last years, which is a little bit linked to the abortion debate. In most of the countries where embryonic stem cell is prohibited, it's totally linked to embryonic stem cell research and abortion, as you, Lorenzo, have clearly explained in your presentation. So in Mexico, we just got the debate about abortion, about legalization of abortion in Mexico City in 2007. We got permitted to interrupt the pregnancy up until the 12th week of gestation of women. So what it is called abortion on demand was permitted in Mexico City. So it was a huge debate about whether life must be protected from conception and whether the embryo has the right to life or not. So, and it was closely linked to the embryonic stem cell research as well. So what the Supreme Court decided on that occasion in 2008 was that we have a constitutional framework, as in Germany, for example. So we must decide case by case, but in this case was a constitutional action. So we were looking at whether the law in Mexico City was constitutional or not. Like if we should permit women to have control over their bodies, and whether an embryo or an early embryo has the right to life or it's a person. So the court say that the Constitution doesn't say any word about protecting life from conception, so we cannot attribute moral status to the embryo. So not moral, not legal. Maybe the moral discussion is another one, but it was not the main discussion there in the Supreme Court. And since the moral discussion is still under debate, we don't have a conclusive position on that matter. So we have a different views on what is the value of embryos. So we cannot really come to a moral compromise yet, because we haven't discussed that openly. What was really relevant in this case was that the Mexican Commissioner for Human Rights was the one that established the unconstitutional action before the court. And it was really relevant because the arguments that he used were totally linked to the doctrine of the Catholic Church, not in Mexico but in Rome. So they were using this Dignitas Personae encyclical letter issued in 2008 in order to protect life from conception and the dignity of embryos. So they were quoting the documents even in the unconstitutional action presented before the court. So it was not only the Commissioner of Human Rights who presented those arguments before the court, it was also the General Prosecutor of Mexico. You know that we have a huge issue about what the General Prosecutors in Mexico declared in press. I don't know if you are aware of the problem. Wow. Well, should I do that? No. So, well, there are a lot of public matters that general prosecutors take more for. They don't really investigate crimes, so they don't really know. They don't know what to say in public. So, because they haven't conducted scientific investigations, so what they say to the public is not really based on science. It's based on morals, or it's based on assumptions, or maybe on political interest during the period that they are in charge. So on that time, the General Prosecutor was a member of the most conservative political party in Mexico, which was ruling the country, the National Action Party. That National Action Party, and in its status, has the doctrine of the Catholic Church. So the very first article of the statute says is to protect life from conception and to protect the dignity of all human beings, as it has been stated in Dignitas Personae, and also as it is stated in the German Constitution, in the very first article. So we have this kind of a mixture of other constitutions and also the doctrine of the Catholic Church inside legal status, but not the Constitution itself, not the Mexican Constitution, but in secondary regulations such as the political parties and many other regulations, but not the main one, not the main legal document in our country, which is the Constitution. So that is why the Supreme Court of Justice decided at that time to declare constitutional the interruption of pregnancy of in Mexico City before the 12 weeks of gestation. So it is not clear in the Constitution whether life from conception is protected, so we have to balance women's right against early manifestation of life. So here we have the reproductive rights that are of more value than many other rights. That happened in the Supreme Court in 2008. So after that, this presentation is in Spanish, so I'm not expecting you to understand all of the things that I have here. But I'm just making clear what is the main argument that the Catholic Church in Mexico and politicians have used in the political arena and discourse, which is the notion of human dignity assigned to the human embryonic life. So the discussion has been concentrated or focused on the embryo and embryonic stem cell lines, but in Mexico we have many scientists working not only on embryonic stem cell lines. We have scientists working on somatic or adult stem cells. So the discussion hasn't been like open and has been stopped just in the abortion discussion and embryonic stem cell lines. So we have bigger problems that are not related to embryonic life, that are not related to embryonic stem cell lines, that hasn't been tackled. And it has caused other problems, as you may be aware of, stem cell tourism. Mexico, along with Thailand, India, and many other, well, I think that we are the three main providers of unproven stem cells. And China, China. Well, the discussion has been focused on that, and I think that there are bigger discussions too, bigger problems that we have to tackle down. Otherwise, we're just fostering a fake stem cell science in Mexico, non-existent stem cell. An important feature that I want to highlight here is that in 2003, before all this constitutional debate about abortion and embryonic stem cell line, we had a major opportunity to discuss the topic of stem cell science in Mexico. We have two big players in Mexico in the political arena that are visible. One is the hierarchy of the Catholic Church that has been always like the successful winner in any debate. And we have on the other hand, the scientists who are pushing forward for more liberal rules in terms of science, technology, and in particular on stem cell science. So in 2003, one of the members of the lower chamber tried to put forward a bill in order to allow adult stem cell research. And basically the main arguments were based on the Italian arguments that you presented clearly, Lorenzo. So I'm going to take that part from you into my presentation, because it was clear that the Catholic Church was lobbying those politicians in the lower chamber, telling them that we should move forward with adult stem cell research, and we didn't really need to talk about embryonic stem cells because the therapeutical benefit is not close. It's really in the future, and it's something that we don't really need to talk about. So let's permit any adult stem cell research and prohibit embryonic stem cell research. So that was the only time where this topic has been discussed in the lower chamber. On that time, the president of the College of Bioethics in Mexico, I am a member of that college at UNAM. I must say that college is the most liberal college in terms of ethical matters related to science and technology. So our position in reproductive matters, abortion, stem cell research is really liberal. So we are very few in the country, maybe just 15, who believe that all life has a value. But it's a gradualist position that we must assume. We are not, we are a continuing life. So each stage of our lives has a different value. And we support arguments in more consequentialist and utilitaristic views on life. So we believe that we have a lot of people suffering for terminal diseases and illnesses. And in Mexico, we have shown that we have a lot of patients and people really willing to get into any clinical trial in order to get hope. And many other people all around the world want to get any hope or any clinical treatment. So what we believe is that we have to move forward. We have to move forward in stem cell science. And if we do talk openly about this, we can establish controls and overseen from the regulators in Mexico, because nowadays we haven't openly discussed these issues, and that is why we have this stem cell tourism growing in the frontier in the north of Mexico and many other touristic areas in Mexico. So, in this point, it's really clear to me, because last week, I'm going to share this with you. This is information that it is not written in my paper, but it's something important because it really says what is happening in Mexico and how ethics, religion, and the biopharmaceutical industry shape any kind of policy or regulation related to stem cell therapies for science. I was in another panel like this, but we were like in a round table, And one of the providers in Mexico of unproven stem cell therapies, not therapies, sorry, of risky experimental interventions with stem cells. He was talking to me, why you don't open the discussion about not conducting research on embryonic stem cell lines. And I was telling to him, well, because it's not about which kind of cells, it's about how you are conducting the research. There are other ethical points that we have to discuss. Let's stop talking about whether life begins from conception or not. Whether there are a lot of embryonic stem cell lines in the world, so we can conduct research on them, not even destroying embryos. But what is happening now in Mexico is that we have a lot of experimental interventions. We don't know for sure if there are stem cells or not. But with the stem cells, I must say. But the discussion has been shaping all these stem cell tourism and regulation has been because of all the Catholic doctrine and the lobbying of the Catholic Church. And well, the advantage that many people who work for the biopharma industry takes. And then they talk to the Catholic Church and they say, well, we're not transplanting or injecting embryonic stem cells. We are doing this without adult stem cells. Well, it's not the end of the ethical discussion. It's just the beginning. That's it. Thank you.